Too bad you will die.
Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to go over how to apply face capture to your own animations using the LiveLink app. So here we are in a blank Unreal project. This is 5.5. If you're following this tutorial, I recommend you have at least 5.4 upwards, as there are certain features that were only introduced from those versions upwards. So to start off, you want to make sure that you have some certain plugins enabled. So we can do that by going Edit and Plugins. What we're going to need for this is you're going to need the LiveLink plugins. Specifically these three. Unreal recommends that you have these plugins enabled. And you're also going to need the AppleARKit plugins. Once you check these, Unreal will probably ask you to restart. If you don't have them enabled already, just go ahead and do that. We can close this. Now if we head up to Window and Virtual Production, now LiveLink appears. And this is where we're going to find our source, the source being the hardware that's going to bring in our face capture, which in this case is my phone, specifically an iPhone. For this, you're going to need an iPhone 10 or newer. That's just to make sure that you have all the necessary firmware and hardware required to use LiveLink, to use the LiveLink Face app that you can get on the Apple App Store. So to connect your phone to the Unreal project, you're going to need to make sure that your phone is connected on the same IP address as your computer. The easiest way to do that is to go into the command prompt from the start menu and type in ipconfig, and then you want to look for the IP4 address, and you want to basically match this up in the settings in your LiveLink app. From the LiveLink app, you want to select LiveLink (ARKit). That's what we'll be using for this tutorial. As you can see now that I've connected, now that I've copied the IP address in the iPhone settings, now the phone is appearing as a source live in this project. If I turn the camera off on my phone, you can see that it's gone into standby mode. Simply just turn it back on and it immediately connects straight back to it. So once we've got the phone set up, the next thing you have to set up is the character mesh. For this, your character mesh will need blend shapes or morph targets, as they're known in Unreal Engine. AppleARKit has up to 52 blend shapes. If you can have a character with all of these, then you'll get the most accurate representation of your face capture. Today we're using the Elf Arden character, which you can get from the Fab Marketplace. So I've already imported him here. It's this guy here. You can see here, this is a list of all his morph targets. So a morph target is basically a group of vertices on the mesh that are deformed based on a value between 0 and 1. If you can see here, we do the brow inner up. You can see his eyebrows are moving between 0 and 1. And you can see he's got all 52 blend shapes here. So once it's confirmed that your character has these morph targets, you need to go into their animation blueprint. This can usually be found by typing AVP_. As you can see, we've got them here. You just open this up and you'll be met with the anim graph here. So it's already got some things set up. We need to add some additional things to make sure that LiveLink actually works with this mesh. So what we need to do is we need to break off of the output pose. We need to add a LiveLink pose node and set the subject name as our source, which is the iPhone. And this here like so. And if we compile that, we zoom in here. So now you can see that my face is now mapping to this character in real time. So we can close these for now and return to the main screen here. So the purpose of this video is to show how to apply face capture to existing animation data. So what we need to do is we need to bring in some animation. The Elf Arden character does come with his own set of animations, but for this demo, I actually have my own animation here. So what we're going to do is we're going to import this animation. This was already this animation data was already tested on this character. But you should be able to grab any animation data from online, providing that the animation data has the same skeleton as the character that you're using. Just have to just check that beforehand before you import, just to make sure it'll come through. So now we can see we have motion capture data on our character. We'll save this out. So next, what we want to do is we want to apply face data to this body capture. The easiest way to do this is doing it through a level sequence. So what we can do is go in here and go cinematics level sequence. Just call this demo. If I open this with a blank sequence track, and now we need to grab our animation blueprint again. We can just click and drag him into the world. See, our character's in this position. This is a game animation that is already applied to the character, but as you'll see in a minute, the body capture that we have should override this. So what we can do with him selected, we can grab him from the outliner, we can drag him into the sequence track. We then want to find the animation that we brought in, which is this one. You see it plays there. And we just want to cut it off right there so it doesn't go over. And we can go ahead and save this. So now we have body capture that we can map face capture to. And the great thing about Live Link is that you can do this in real time, so you can time up your performance with the existing animation. And the way we do that is if we go into Window, Cinematics, and Tape Recorder. It brings up this menu here. As you can see here, this is set to 24 frames. We just want to set this to 30. Depending on what kind of animation you're doing, you'll want to change this. If it's a game animation, you probably want 30 or 60 frames per second. As this is for a cinematic, we're going to keep this at 24. What you want to do here is you want to go into Source. If you go from Live Link, you can select the phone as the source. This is what will be recorded through Tape Recorder. And you just want to uncheck use source timecode. You don't need that. Okay, so then before we record this, we want to just name this, just call this face cap, and take one as it's our first take. Now you can see the previous sequence track we had here has disappeared. This is because it's part of the this is the Tape Recorder sequence track. We don't need this. What we can do whilst this is recording is we can open up the previous sequence track with the body animation in, and it should pick up the face in real time. I'll demonstrate this real quick. This. So you can see in here, my face is being picked up in real time. So this is how you're going to record your data. And the great thing about this as well is that you can also record from your phone. So if you wanted to use this data on a new character in the future, you can have a recording. So I'm going to turn on my recording now. As you can see, I have this recording on now. This is still recording in real time in the Unreal project. This allows you to save the recording, as I said, and then bring it over into another project. So what we can do now is I can hit record on here, and you have to excuse my acting here. I'm just going to hold my phone next to the screen so I can see the scene in real time. There we go. Click record. Now, as you can see, it's removed the animation track, so we need to open this again. It's still running. Here we go. Too bad you die. And then if we you want to close this sequence track first before you stop this, because Unreal has a habit of crashing. I'm just going to turn this off as well. So now in the window, you can see that we have our recorded data here. Now this brings up the whole sequence with all of your sources in here. Because we only have one, we want to go into sub-scenes, and we have our iPhone data here. As you can see on this line, these are all the keys recorded during the take. You can see all your values here. These are all the values of the blend shapes. So now we need to bring something in to bake this to. So what you can do, you can select the animation blueprint again, drag him in from the outliner. Oh, first you have to unlock the sequence track. And then we do that again. And then what you can do is you can simply, from here, right click and bake animation sequence. What this will do, this will bake the face capture to the body capture. Let's just save this in somewhere, just save this under face capture. We call this anim all body. And you can keep all this checked and then export to your animation sequence. And then if we open that real quick, it disappears. As you can see, this has baked the face data to the character. There's actually one more step before we bake it to the body performance. So now we have this saved. We can close out of this. We can close tape recorder. We don't need that anymore. And we can close this sequence. I usually just like to relock this and save it, so we have it for later. And what we can do is we can go back into our demo sequence with our body capture here, and we can add the animation that we just created. Now you can see it's doing something a bit funky here. And that's because these animations are overriding each other. So what we need to do is we need to separate these. Thankfully, this is quite easy. What we can do is we can go back into the animation blueprint. We need to add a bit more logic here. We'll close this off again. So if I go into the skeletal mesh here, we open up the bones hierarchy. So effectively what we want to do is we want to keep all the body capture on here and just separate the head. Conveniently, the head bone is just called head. You can see here. And the way we can separate these off is in the animation blueprint. We have a thing here called the slot manager. This is where we can assign slots. This is useful for say a game animation. If you have a rifle animation, if you're firing a gun or swinging a sword, but you want to do this whilst your character is still running, what you would do is you would separate the upper body from the lower body using slots and blend them so the legs aren't impacted by the sword swing. So what we can do here, we can add a slot, we'll call this face, and then we can add another one for the body. Now all this stuff before, we still want this because we're going to use control rigs later. So we want to cache this out. So we want to create a new saved cache pose. And what this does is this stores all of this logic. And we can call this back later. Let's just call this live link. And if you right click here, type live link again, you can pull this. We want to duplicate this, so just copy and paste. I want to assign the slots that we just created here. So if you just type slot, it starts as a default slot, but you can change it. You want the body to be the main driver. And the face to be a second. And what we can do is we can use a layered blend per bone node. And what this does is this determines which bone on the skeletal mesh is where the blend will be. We do this by setting up in here. This is already open for us. So we open this. Select the bone. We said before it was head. We're going to make sure it's exactly the same naming convention, so no uppercase letters. And compile that. And then we return to the level sequence. And what we can do, two animations here, so we can set these under properties, we can set them to their slot. This becomes body. Becomes body. And this becomes face. And you can see the data is now playing across. Now we have to do, scrub through this sequence. And that should be pretty accurate. Yeah. Once you're happy with that, we then bake this out again. We go into animation. Animation sequence. You can see our animation is now baked. Already looks quite nice, but obviously, same with any animation, you can always push things further. We can do some additional cleanup to this. I'll show you how. We use this existing animation sequence. Just bring this new animation in, and the data is on here now. Save that. Now, if I want to edit this further, you'd usually do this with a control rig. And what's great about Unreal 5.4 onwards is that they actually added a thing called layered control rigs, which means that you don't have to bake down to a control rig anymore. You can layer a control rig on top and clean animation data additively. What we can do, so if we go into the track here, select layered, select this control rig. This is the one that comes with Arden. As you can see, he's got all the body controls. However, there's nothing to control the morph targets in the face. So what you would usually do before is you would use a FK control rig. However, this limits you to only changing the values from the sequence track. If you want controllers like these, you would need to create these yourself. I'm going to show you how to do that now. So I'm going to create a new control rig for demonstration purposes. So what we need to do is find the skeletal mesh for our character. It's here. And right click and create a control rig. And you open with this. Now to test, what I usually do is, first off, let's go into the skeleton here. Find a good morph target, one with good exaggeration for demonstration. I usually go for jaw open. You can see there. So what we'll do is outside of the skeleton hierarchy, we'll just create a new control. We'll call this jaw open control. It is down here. And we can do, we can bring this up in the viewport to make sure there's no strange values when this goes into the sequence track. What we can do is we can right click this and select Set Offset Transform from Current. So this basically has all the translation data as an offset rather than the actual values. The order information here. We can customize this how we want. For this, I'll do an arrow. Just compile this. Now this controller isn't quite set for what we need to use it for. Obviously, morph targets use a value from 0 to 1. So the easiest way to control this would be from a slider. And to do that, we can use a float value. Just go over here, change this to a float. And because we want it, because it's the jaw moving up and down, we'll change this to the Z-axis, and you can see this line here, although this is quite long. So what we can do is on the offset, we can scale this down, just lock this value so these all change. We just change this to 0.1. And then we can change the size of the arrow to 5. You can see you've now got this slider here. Again, if you want to change the rotation of this, because the jaw is going down to open, we can rotate this. It slides down. As well. So now we have this. Now the way this works, you could set this, the minimum and maximum, to 0 and 1. However, in the viewport, you can see this gets rid of the line. This doesn't really give you much movement. So what we can do is we can set this back to 100, and I'll show you why later. So now we have all this stuff here. We now need to make this controller work. So to do this, we need to get this controller in here. We'll do that by selecting Get Control Float. It's a float value. And then if we compile this, then I want to select this and map it in here. And then we need to set our curve value. So this is the 0 to 1 value of the morph target. And we need to select which curve or which morph target is being driven. In this case, it's jaw open. We select this. If we just put this straight in here and compile it, you're going to notice it doesn't work properly. And that's because we've got the value in here set to 100. So what we need to do is we need to bring this down to 1. To do that, we can use a divide node and divide by 100. That, as you can see, we still have the length of it here, but because we're dividing in the software, I'm going to have a controller. So I save this. We now go back to our sequence track and try and add it. You'll notice that it isn't here. And that's because to use it in sequencer, we need to add a backwards solve node. So the way these work, the forward solve basically determines the controllers driving the bones, and the backward solve is the opposite of that. It's the skeleton driving the controls. And we need this logic to be able to use the control rig in sequencer. So what we need to do here is we need to do this reverse. So what you would do instead is you would set the control float. We'll get your controller here. And we would get our curve value. Curve, which is jaw open. And we need to multiply this back up to its max value. multiply by 100. Compile that. Let's double check, still works. And now if we go back to our sequence track, our control rig, you can see now it's here. Although it's offset because our animation is set back. But if you look here, you can see we can now edit the morph target in the sequence track. So this is now great. This now means that you can now edit the entire performance capture of your animation in Sequencer. Now, obviously, there are 52 morph targets here. So if you want full control of all of the morph targets, you're going to have to expose all 52 of them, which means you have to do this 52 times. To save time, I'm going to show one that I completed earlier. So this is our full body control rig here I made earlier. So you can see I've set a load of controllers around here. We've got the eyes, got the mouth, and the eyebrows. So this now offers a lot more control when animating and editing in Sequencer. This still isn't all of the morph targets. This is just most of them. What you can see, if we go back into the sequence track here, and we choose this control rig, you can see that the blend shapes that drive my smile at the start of the video, they have not been exposed. So they're not quite visible. However, for the sake of this tutorial, this is a close enough match. So you can see if you go through the rest, it's pretty accurate. And this now means that we can adjust all of these, and we can key these as a layer and keep the original data. So if we ever want to go back, we just mute this, and you can see. And you may notice some of these controllers as well that certain movements here are quite exaggerated. This is because they're actually multiple morph targets being driven by one controller. Where you do that, and here, as you can see, we have both of these curves set to this one controller here. So same logic, we just combine two from the divide node, and that then drives both of them. But that is pretty much the whole development pipeline for using face capture with your own animation data. This scene is now able to be animated on, so this can now be cleaned to produce a final render. and then you can put this into your own scene or anything like that. But yeah, this brings us to the end of the video. So thank you for watching and take care.